Yeah, welcome to the Making of Me podcast, where we explore the defining moments and the personal journey that shape who people become and the impacts they create. Today, I'm joined by Luke Mickelson, founder of Sleep in Heaven in Peace, motivational speaker, author, and social impact leaders who work has helped deliver hundreds of thousands of beds to children in need around the world. It's really a pleasure having you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Aro.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So, Luke, what were some of the challenges that shape you into who you are today?
It's a great question. I mean, I think, I'm a small town kid from small town Idaho in America. And, the beauty about being from a small town is you get to know everybody. And the
Yeah.
downside of a small town is you get to know everybody, you know?
Yeah.
But really, honestly, when you're from such a small town, you instantly develop this bond, this desire and need to help people, and the sense of community and working together. That's the benefits of coming from a small town, and so I know that's really shaped me as I've grown into who I am now, and really is a lot of the reason and responsibility or responsible for how I started Sleep in Heavenly Peace, and certainly why it's grown into what it's grown to.
Wow, amazing. I would like to dive deep into that. So take us back to the moment where you first discovered the issues of child bedlessness. Why
Well,
did you see it and how did it affect you personally?
Well, like anybody, I didn't know that child bedlessness was a thing. I didn't know that that was a problem. I'd never seen it before. When in 2012, that's when this all started. I was in my church serving as what was called the young men's president, and the young men's president had responsibilities for the spiritual growth as well as the activities of the young men's program, boys as ages 12 to 17. And I grew up playing sports. I grew up coaching kids, coaching my own kids. And so I just had this knack and this good relationship I could create with kids. And so it was a good fit for me. In this position I held, we had monthly meetings where me and other members of the church, leaders of the church, got together and we talked about problems that were happening within the congregation, within this small town that we lived in, and specifically people. Well, one family we were talking about, the mom was the local school bus driver, the dad
Yeah.
suffered from some mental health issues, so he really couldn't hold a job. They were just struggling at the time. And the church was helping them with all sorts of stuff, rent and food and clothing for the kids. Someone went over to the house and discovered that the kids didn't have any beds. They were literally sleeping on the floor. Now, that's really foreign to me. That's uncommon. I've never heard of that before. And so when I first heard about that, it was really shocking to me. I'd never known of kids sleeping on the floor, at least not unless they did it on purpose. They were sleeping just on blankets. And so it really kind of hit me. I don't know why, but I wanted to do something about that. And it also made me think of my boys. See, the activities that we would do is the Boy Scouts. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
Yeah.
the Boy Scouts every week we had an activity. And you know how it is nowadays, these young teens, to get them out from behind a phone or a TV screen or a computer game, that's hard to do. And so that's what we always struggled each week to try to find something that we could do with them to get them out from behind a screen and also be a fun activity. Well, the thought came to my head. I've got kids in my own community that don't have beds. I need an activity for my Boy Scouts to enjoy. Great, let's go build a bed for these kids. Now, I'd never built a piece of furniture in my life, but I mean, I knew my way around a drill and a saw, so I could figure it out.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. I had the boys come over to my house that week and we started building this bunk bed for this family. And the kids had a great time. The word kind of got out that we were building this bunk bed for this family, and the boys and their parents and their friends and their other leaders wanted to be a part of the delivery of this bed. Well, we ended up having 20, 30 people that all wanted to go to this small apartment, and that wasn't going to work. So
Yeah.
me and some me and some leaders, sorry, we stayed back, right? I had to clean my garage because it was a mess. Anyways, we stayed back. And the next day at church, the boys told me how amazing this experience was of delivering this bed to these kids that never had a bed before, right? They were sleeping on the floor, and how appreciative they were and the family was. And I was really excited and super glad for the kids to have that experience. but I also felt a little jealous. I missed out on this great opportunity, and here I built the bed and went through the effort and didn't get to reap the reward. And so I was sitting on the couch, just a couple of days later, and with my kids, and the thought came to my head, Errol, that I can provide that same opportunity for my own kids. Have them appreciate the joys of service, giving back to the
Hmm.
community, and appreciating what they had. They had a bed where these kids didn't have one. So I got up off the couch and went out to the garage. And before I entered the garage, I turned to my kids and I said, "Hey, listen, I'm going to build another bunk bed, and you're going to help me." So over the next couple of nights, that's what we did. My kids, my little daughter and son, were with me out in the garage, and we built another bunk bed for a family. Well, we didn't know anybody that needed beds. It was just an activity that I wanted to have my kids be involved with. Well, now I had this bunk bed, and I didn't know what to do with it. I wanted it to go to a child. So I put it on Facebook, one of those buy sell trade groups, and said, hey, does anybody know of a family that has kids sleeping on the floor? And what happened next, our era was just crazy. We had so many people I knew and people I didn't know, message back to me the conditions that of kids that they knew that were sleeping on floors, on couches, on pallets, sleeping with four or five other kids, just really bad circumstances. And it was really eye opening to me. So I was excited that, we were going to find a kid. And finally we landed on one child. Her name was Haley. And Haley was 6 years old, never slept in a bed. She slept in the backseat of her mom's car. She was homeless. Well, when we found out about her, they just got a house from a friend of mine that helped them get this house. And so I wanted to deliver this special bed that me and my family built. I wanted to deliver it to her. Well, what I didn't realize is when we showed up to this house and walked in, little Haley was super excited to show us her house, but there was nothing in it. I mean, there was no couch or table or chairs or anything. There was a can of soup sitting on a hot plate. That was the only thing in the house.
Hmm.
And it just wrecked me, to see poverty like that through the eyes of a 6-year-old was something I'd never done before. And so I leaned down to little Haley and said, "Hey, why don't you show me where your bedroom is?" So she pulled us back into her bedroom, and you could imagine what it looked like, right? There was holes in the carpet and tears on the wallpaper. But what caught my eye and was the hardest to see was in the corner of her bedroom was a pile of clothes, like a little nest, and that's what Haley slept on. She would come home from school, put her PJs on, she would sleep on her school clothes, and then turn around in the morning, put her school clothes on and go to school. So I'd never seen that before. And so we were pretty excited to bring her first bed. And as we started putting the bed together, and assembling it, she quickly realized what we were doing, and she just erupted. She came over and hugged us, these two strange dudes, and then went hugged the bed, even kissed the bed. I'd never seen that before. It was really a neat thing. And if that wasn't enough to just melt your heart, I look up and
Hmm.
here's mom, a single mom, and I was raised by a single mom too. Tears just pouring down her face, and I knew what those tears meant, right? I knew the anguish and the pain and the guilt and the struggle that she'd been facing for so many years just to provide food, clothing, and shelter for her daughter. A bed, unfortunately, was a luxury, and we were taking care of that for her. So she was just uncontrolled, right? She was just emotional and over the moon about it, which made me, cry and break my big tough man syndrome here.
Yeah.
And so it was just a really neat experience, and I realized right then and there that we provide way more than just a bed. This was more than a bed to this mom, and it was just more than a good night's sleep to this little girl.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. This is really amazing. So many people actually want to help but feel overwhelmed. What does your journey teach about starting small but thinking big?
Oh, it's a great question. I'm a dreamer. I think of something and I take it all the way to the sky, and there's pros and cons to that. But when this happened, I didn't realize that child bedlessness was as bad as it is. Even in the United States, which is one of the richest countries in the world, we have child bedlessness to the tune of 3% of the total population. You live in a town of 100,000 people, there's 3,000 kids sleeping on the floor. And the more beds we built, the more we realized and more people let us know about more kids that they knew that were sleeping on the floor. It was a big problem. And unfortunately, I found out that no one was taking care of it. There wasn't any other charities around that were building beds for kids or providing beds for kids. It was the single hardest thing for a lot of these transitioning homelessness services and foster care and whatnot to provide, because no one was helping the cause. And so I decided with some friends that I wanted to focus on building and delivering beds to kids. And so we started building beds, and the more beds we built, the more kids we found out were in need. So we wanted to build more beds, and
Wow.
pretty soon, more people wanted to do what we were doing. They wanted to do it in their own hometown. They wanted to help the kids in their, across the street from them. And so we developed a program where people could start chapters of our charity and do what we were doing in their own hometown. And because of that, now we've trained over 450
Mm.
chapter presidents in 4 countries, and we've built almost 360,000 beds.
Wow. 360,000. That was really amazing. From just one at the corner I went to, that was really amazing. And the sudden growth was, yeah, really, really amazing. So you actually
Just,
talk about,
just
yeah,
just last year in 2025, which was our biggest year, we built almost 90,000 beds just in one year. Yeah.
amazing,
And
amazing.
the crazy thing is, what's really sad, Arrow, is as you and I speak right now, tonight, we have 160,000 kids that are on our waiting list. Think about
Hmm.
that. Isn't that crazy?
You actually. You talk about humans helping humans. What does that philosophy means in practical daily action?
Great question. When I started this, it kind of got started from experiences I had and people I knew with my church. But I knew that I didn't want this to be centered around any specific religion. I didn't want it to be centered around any political movements or whatnot. We're just humans, right? And these are little humans, and we're here to help. And so, what better way? What better montage? What better thought process or whatever than we're just a bunch of humans that want to help other humans? And in this case, they're little humans, right? And these little humans, these kids, they're in these situations not because of any of their choices. No, they're in these situations because of other people's choices, and they're reaping the consequences of those. And so when we deliver a bed to a child, we want to make sure that these kids know that this is their bed. This is nobody else's bed. It's not their parents. It's not their brothers and sisters. This is your bed. And oftentimes these kids, it's the only possession they have. And I wanted to make sure that humans helping humans is to help people realize that anybody can do this. I'm just a farm kid from Idaho. I'm a nobody, Arrow. Just like everybody, we're just nobodies, but together, we're somebody. And together we can make big differences. And I knew that. And I knew that. And so I wanted everybody to know the only criteria that you need to help someone else out is just being human. And that's what we all are.
Yeah, just been amazing, amazing. Thank you. Oh, so you have a feature on major platform and shows. How has visibility changed the missions and the pressure around it?
The great thing is it really hasn't changed the mission at all, right? And that's important to understand. Whether we served 21 kids that first year, 1,000 kids this last year, our mission's the same. No kid sleeps on the floor in our town. We just want our town to be everybody's town, right? Because we know that this problem is everywhere. And here's the key, Arrow. This problem isn't going to be solved by some kid from Idaho. I'm not going to solve the problems and the child bedlessness issues in your town. That's up to you. That's up to the people of that town to do that. So and I knew that a long time ago. So what I wanted to do was not solve it for you, but what I wanted to do is provide and develop a platform, a program, something that people could follow so they can do what we do in their own hometown. And that's what we
Amazing.
call a chapter president, and so
Amazing.
yeah, and that's why now we've trained over 400 and almost 450 chapter presidents, because I knew this is only going to be solved on a local level. So we've got to make it accessible, easily accessible to people that want to do this in their own hometown.
Yeah, amazing. This is really amazing. I thought that the structure you are putting around it training a whole lot of chapter presidents. It's really amazing. Yeah, really amazing. So for someone listening who is searching for more purpose and fulfillment in life, what is the first step? What advice will you actually give to them that they should start taking?
This is what I speak on, tiny moments, all of us, I don't care where you're from or your ethnicity, your beliefs, it doesn't matter. We all have tiny moments, little inspirations that come to us almost every day, right? And sometimes they're small, sometimes they're big. They're just these tiny moments that inspire us that we should do this or we should go help that or we should do this. And oftentimes we dismiss them, right? We think, oh, we're too busy or someone else is doing that or I can't do that, and that's I encourage everybody, if you just follow those tiny moments, right? There's nothing but good that's going to come from those. And yeah, you might not start the world's largest bed building charity in the, but I promise you, if you go and help someone, it's going to improve their life, but more importantly, before you even know it, it's going to improve your own. And the more you do that, the more you answer the call of your tiny moments, your little inspirations. Who knows? Who knows what will pop up. I think all the time back in the 2012, had I not got off the couch, had I not answered that tiny moment, just think what would not have happened.
Yeah, yeah.
It's I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about 360,000 kids that would still be
Mhm.
sleeping on the floor right now. I don't want to think about the 500,000 volunteers that have helped and been touched their efforts and how they feel towards child bedlessness right now. And that all started from a tiny moment.
Yeah, amazing, amazing, amazing. And even talking about the 450 chapter president who has been inspired to do it in their various locations. Yeah, it's really amazing and very intriguing. So look, for my audience who actually want to reach out to you, who want to speak more about this and how they could help or how they could support or be part of this particular movement, how can they reach out to you and where is the best platform?
You bet. So first of all, if you want to learn more about the charity, okay, you can go to our website, hpbeds.org. Now, when you do that, it's going to come up. If you're in the United States, it's going to locate a chapter that's closest to you. You're going to be able to see what's going on in that area because we wanted people to help locally, right? And there's a bunch of ways. I mean, obviously, we're a charity, so we accept donations. But that's the least of our concerns. Honestly, we want people to raise awareness. We want people to share this podcast, voice what you hear today with others, because child bedlessness is so unknown. No one knows that it's this big of a problem, right? And we have a mission to make sure we get out there and share and raise awareness. So that's one thing you can do. The other thing too is, find your local chapter, especially if you're in your states or in Canada or Bermuda, Bahamas. Find a local chapter and help out. All these chapters are looking for core members to come help and be a part of the movement. And if you happen to not have a chapter close by or and this is something that really touches your heart, you can start a chapter. We teach you and train you how to run your chapter, and we take care of all the other minutia that starting a chapter, starting a nonprofit rather requires. We take that all away from you. You don't have to worry about that. All you have to worry about is raising money, building beds, and delivering beds. And that's our main focus for our chapter presidents.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much, Luke, and
And,
thank you for sharing.
and I will say this, if you want to get a hold of me, you can email me. I have two emails, Luke at lukemickelson.com or luke.mickelson@shpbeds.org. You can find me on social media. I'm either Luke Mickelson or SHB Luke. I'm all over the place. Google me. You'll find me. I promise you. Reach out. I'd love to answer any questions. I'd love to direct you in the path that you want to take or the information you want to know. Look, this is my job. Not even job. This is my calling, right?
Yeah,
I want to raise awareness. I want to help people realize their potential and what they can do for other people.
yeah, amazing. I think just speak volumes too. From what you just said earlier on, if you help others achieve what they are looking forward to better their life, you end up bettering your own life. And yeah,
Right.
it's really amazing. Look, thank you for sharing your journey and the work you are doing. Bring dignity and comfort to children and family around the world. Your stories is very powerful, and it reminds us that simple action can grow into a global impact. For our listener, you can actually learn more and get involved at safbed.org. The link is going to be on the show notes. Thank you for being in the for the Making of Me podcast, and it's really a pleasure and an honor having you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.